Their first trial by fire came early in 1957. On 25 January, Thor was ready for its first flight test. September 20th, 1957, Thor was ready again. And Thor flew. On course and true, it blasted down the eastern test range. Rocket power lifted our missile program literally off the ground. This felt good. It was good.
Which performed so consistently that it continues to be used by NASA as the standard booster for many of its satellite launches.
The program was begun late in the spring of 1958, and at the same time a detailed launch schedule was set up. The first space probe vehicle was launched within 4 minutes of the scheduled launch time set more than 5 months before. The Pioneer payload package journeyed approximately 71,000 miles out into space and gathered important scientific data on radiation levels and of the Earth's gravitational fields in space, along with other valuable information concerning the nature of our universe. Space probe programs also permit us to gather additional flight test information relating to various future military uses of missiles.
On October 11th, 1958, Thor launched NASA's Pioneer 1 to mark the beginning of a highly productive Air Force NASA team.
1952 was a time of transition at the Cape, a transition from missile development to space operations and space probes. There was a significant increase in the number of launches to place satellites into orbit and to send instrument packages to the far reaches of space. A practical application of space is its use in weather forecasting. 3 TIRUS satellites were placed into orbit during the year. Boosted by a Thor Delta, TIRUS transmits pictures to Earth on demand. These pictures have contributed much to man's ability to understand his age-old nemesis, weather. During the summer evenings of 1960, a favorite American pastime was watching Echo, a balloon in orbit. Echo 1 proved the value of passive communication satellites. And in 1962, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration achieved a significant breakthrough in Project Big Shot. A 13-story high polyethylene balloon, paper thin, was folded carefully in the nose cone of a Thor Delta. Observers at the Cape watched the package hurtle over 900 miles into space, still sparkling at apogee like a new star. Cameras and television transmitters aboard the booster recorded the successful deployment of the balloon, following it down to the Earth's atmosphere where it burned. Satisfied with test results, NASA engineers looked to an early orbital flight for the big balloon. It has learned to look to space for some of the answers to problems about the Earth. An example is Anna, a 350-pound, 36-inch sphere circling the Earth every 107 minutes, 600 miles up, flashing a light at designated times. Scientists of the world use the man-made star to improve mapping capabilities and to validate geodetic measurements. Anna, whose name came from the initials of Air Force, Navy, NASA, and Army, all participating agencies in the project, was launched into its near-perfect orbit by an Air Force Thor Able at 8 minutes past 3 on the morning of October the 31st. A joint United Kingdom-United States satellite launched by a Thor Delta rocket on April 26, 1962 from Cape Canaveral is symbolic of international cooperation in the peaceful exploration and utilization of space. Telstar brought the world into the American living room. A Thor Delta rocket placed this communications satellite into orbit. Developed by private industry, this 34.5-inch sphere made possible instant mass communication. Placed into an elliptical orbit, ranging from 600 to 3,500 miles high, Telstar made possible transatlantic live television transmission for the first time. In December, a second experimental communications satellite, the Relay, was launched from Cape Canaveral. However, power problems threatened to render the new communicator silent.
The Relay, an active communication satellite, was designed to take the place of Telstar. The spacecraft was a walled octagon weighing 170 pounds. Its 8 panels contained a great many solar cells, which were designed to recharge 3 batteries. These batteries powered the instrumentation, electrical package, and communication experiments. On the 13th of December at Pad 17A, the countdown began. This day was the coldest in Florida for this date in over 80 years, but the 4-hour range countdown proceeded without a hold. Experiments on this particular launch were to include 1-channel television and 2-way communication signal transmission. The launch vehicle was the improved Thor Delta, with a high-performance Thor first stage, an Aerojet Delta second stage, and an Allegheny Ballistic Laboratories Altair third stage. Liftoff occurred at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Flight of the missile was normal, with Bell Telephone Laboratories guidance facility controlling the initial phase of flight after 90 seconds. Separation of spacecraft from third stage and injection into orbit occurred 21 minutes and 11 seconds after launch. The apogee was 3,920 nautical miles, and the perigee was 713 nautical miles. The orbit was satisfactory, circling the Earth every 184 minutes.
ASSET, the first winged spacecraft and virtually a flying laboratory. ASSET, short for Aerothermodynamic Elastic Structural Systems Environmental Test, was designed to attack a full spectrum of basic research problems relating to reentry from space. Its findings will be applied to current programs and will increase options for designers working on future space hardware. In its 22-minute non-orbiting flight, it transmitted volumes of information over 137 telemetry channels. An Air Force Thor retired from overseas service with NATO sent ASSET on its successful flight. Thor, built by Douglas Aircraft Company, has launched more payloads into space than all other boosters combined. NASA uses the Thor Delta for a wide range of space projects. In May, a Delta orbited Telstar 2. Seventh in the series of Tyros weather satellites, was orbited in June. In July, SYNCOM, a new communication satellite, was placed in a difficult synchronous orbit 23,000 miles up. This perfect operation has led to plans for placing another SYNCOM, boosted by a Super Thor Delta, into orbit at the intersection of the equator and international dateline. Hovering over this spot, the Hughes-built SYNCOM will link Asia with North America for worldwide television transmission.
The third of a planned series of 6 ASSET glide reentry vehicles was launched from Cape Kennedy on the 22nd of July under Air Force direction. Designed to study high-velocity reentry problems, the vehicle was launched by a Thor Delta rocket. After reaching an altitude in excess of 40 miles, ASSET streaked back through the Earth's atmosphere at more than 18,000 feet per second, splashing into the sea 1,400 miles down the eastern test range. In 5 minutes, the vehicle had been located by range aircraft, and Air Force pararescue men were in the water attaching extra flotation devices. Telemetry on board the speeding craft functioned perfectly, and nearly 100% of the test objectives were met. ASSET is another example of a military-civilian team working for advancement in space exploration.
This is Relay 2, a communications satellite undergoing a laboratory spin test. This complex package of electronic wizardry weighs a mere 184 pounds. It is honeycombed with more than 8,000 solar cells and capable of generating its own energy by transforming the sun's rays into power for its internal batteries. Relay's launch vehicle, the Thor Delta rocket, is put through final checkout by NASA engineers. Successful in 21 previous launch missions, the three-stage rocket must insert the moonlet into space on an orbital path reaching as high as 4,600 miles above Earth. Relay's mission is to continue the work of its successful sister satellite, Relay 1, which is still orbiting more than a year after launch. Ignition. And America's second relay communication satellite is on its way into space. Relay, designed to circle the globe every 3 hours and 15 minutes, will provide an electronic switchboard capable of tying together 4 continents through various telecommunication methods. With this successful launch from Cape Kennedy, the United States takes another step forward toward reliable global communications via space satellites.
The Medium Launch Vehicle Division supervised the erection of the first Delta II vehicle, Delta 184. This was at Pad 17A on 2 November 1988. Carrying a Navstar GPS satellite, Delta 184 was successfully launched on 14 February 1989. An older version for the Delta 183 mission was erected at Pad 17B on 25 November 1988. Delta 183, with its Delta Star Space Defense Initiative payload, lifted off successfully on 24 March 1989. By the end of fiscal year 89, the Delta launch team successfully placed 2 more Navstar GPS satellites on orbit. This enabled the first operational test of the new satellite constellation. Global positioning satellites will be able to pinpoint the location of a receiver within 15 feet anywhere on Earth, calculate its speed within 10 miles an hour, and keep time within 1 nanosecond, a millionth of a second. McDonnell Douglas launched its first commercial Delta vehicle with a British Broadcasting satellite aboard on August 27, 1989.